Boa tarde a todos que nos assistem. Em primeiro lugar, obrigada por acompanhar essa sessão, pelo interesse nas atividades do Centro de Estudos Palestinos, da Faculdade de Filosofia, Letras e Ciências Humanas da Universidade de São Paulo. A sessão de hoje vai analisar um trágico caso recentemente acontecido, que foi da morte do jovem brasileiro Walid Ahmad. Então, o título dessa sessão são as implicações da morte do cidadão brasileiro Walid Ahmad em prisão israelense na perspectiva da lei internacional, ou seja, como que se pode entender as causas, as condições e as implicações desse trágico ocorrido de um cidadão brasileiro numa prisão israelense agora no mês de março para abril, de 2025. Então, conosco, os nossos convidados são Khaled Kuzmar, que é o diretor-geral da organização chamada Defense for Children International Palestine, ou seja, é uma organização de defesa das crianças, é uma organização internacional, e ele é o diretor-geral do braço da Palestina dessa organização. Também conosco estão Wesam Ahmad, que é chefe do Centro para o Direito Internacional Aplicado da mais antiga e prestigiada Organização de Direitos Humanos Palestina, Al-Haq. E também Maíra Pinheiro, advogada de direitos humanos, uspiana, e que vai analisar também os casos da perspectiva brasileira. E também irá se juntar a nós, dentro de 10 minutos, Walid Rabah, que é o presidente da Federação Palestina, para falar das especificidades, da família, do caso como um todo, e repercussões aqui no Brasil para a comunidade palestina desse trágico acontecimento. So I will now pass to English, and I'd like to remind our viewers, vocês que nos assistem, que no próprio YouTube possui uma ferramenta de tradução automática por inteligência artificial da legenda automática. Então, vocês podem acionar essa ferramenta no próprio YouTube para conseguir ter uma legenda traduzida ao português em tempo real, certo? Muito obrigada. So now, beginning our session, I would please like to invite Khaled Kuzmar, the General Director of Defense for Children International, Palestine, to speak about the case and how he followed up on this case and all the information he could gather on this tragic case of child death in Israeli prison. So please, yours, Khaled. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation.
Thank you very much, Arlene, for giving me this opportunity to share some information about what the Palestinian children in Israeli military detention are exposed to. My organization is established in 1991, established in order just to give legal consultation, legal services to the Palestinian children who are subject to be arrested and prosecuted in the Israeli military court system. Israel, as an occupying power, since 1967, after few days of the occupying of the Palestinian territory, they established what called the Israeli military court system in order to prosecute all the Palestinians who are resisting the occupation. But by the time Israel even confiscate, the Israeli military court system confiscate most of the authority of the Palestinian civil system, transfer it also to the Israeli military court system. So even sometimes the traffic cases, they are prosecuting thousands of Palestinians in the Israeli military court system. So back to the case of Walid. Walid is one of around 350 Palestinian children who've been arrested by the Israeli military court system, by the Israeli army. So in 2023-24, the number of the Palestinian children who've been arrested and prosecuted in the military court system are doubled and even tripled than the number used to be in 2022, 21, 20, and before. So what happened after the what called 7th of October 2023 is the Israeli army escalated and launched campaigns of arrest against children, adults, but in particular children. The number is unprecedented before those who are arrested and prosecuted. What we witnessed through our work as the lawyers visiting the prisons when the Israeli allowed, because already they put many restrictions. They deny the lawyer visits after the first 1 year. After 1 year of the 7th of October, they start to allow the visits, but in very certain time and very limited time, like to apply for the visit. Sometimes it took to coordinate the visit in the prison. Sometimes took more than 4 or 5 months to manage to get in and to visit the child in a very restricted time and under the supervision of the Israeli security, without giving any privacy to the lawyer or to the child. So Walid was kept in a prison called Megiddo, which is in the north of the West Bank, the occupied territory. But the prison is inside Israel, which considered also as a violation to the Fourth Geneva Convention. So Walid was subject to torture and ill treatment during the first period of arrest, and later on, inside the prison, he was also subject, as the other Palestinian prisoners, to attacks inside the prison, and of course, live like the others under what the Israeli now exposing the prisoners, adults and children. There is no difference between child and adult. Walid was around 17 years old. So a few days ago, actually, there was a kind of press conference to the Israeli Minister of Internal Security, Ben Gavir, and he was proud to talk to the media to talk about how many changes that he did inside the prison and in the treatment of the Palestinian prisoners. And he was proud to say that the limitation of the food that he is offering for the prisoners, the limitation of access to clean water to drink, or to get out of the room. Like in the past, they used to get out for 8 hours a day. Now it's limited to less than 40 minutes. And of course, the food is 2 times a day, and even each time is the minimum of the minimum to keep survivor. So Walid was like the other Palestinian prisoners, suffer from the lack of food, the lack of clean water, the absence, actually, there is no medical equipment inside the rooms. So he was sick of scabies that most of the Palestinian prisoners now are exposed to or affected by this sick without giving them the treatment. So our lawyer managed to see him one time during the whole period that he was in a prison, but since few months he was unable to visit. We applied for the visit, and still we are waiting for the coordination from the Israeli prison authority to allow the lawyer to visit. But we failed to visit him while he was kept in that prison, in the called Megiddo prison. So suddenly, like a few days ago, we heard in the news that Walid was passed away. So we shocked. I visited the family Of course, I'm asking the family, what information that you have about this? They have nothing. Only they received a call from a Palestinian security that they received a call from the Israeli police that he's passed away without any details, without any information. And you can imagine, as a father, as a mother, as a brother, when you miss your son since months without visiting, without knowing the situation that he live in, and in 1 second you receive a message that he's passed away. They've been under shock. Then we start to do the communication, and I can say that we managed to have some real information come from the doctor who participated in the autopsy, and he managed to review his medical file in the hospital, in the prison. And Walid was subject, exposed to, like the other prisoners, to the starvation policy inside the prison, the torture and the attacks policy that they are subject to. So without receiving any medical treatment, and according to the medical report, he was not offered any treatment during the period that he stayed in the prison. So after the autopsy, the doctor concluded by saying that the death of Walid is back to the starvation and to the scabious, the sick that he was subject to, without receiving any treatment. For us, it is warning information, and it is like a wake-up call that what happened to Walid, what resulted the situation that Walid passed through and resulted by his death. Now, hundreds of Palestinian prisoners, children and adults, are maybe subject to the same result if the Israeli prison authority do not change the policy, do not stop the starvation inside the prisons, do not stop the neglect, the right to health, offering their the medical treatment to the prisoners inside the prison. And Walid now he passed away, but we are very much worried about the hundreds of the Palestinian prisoners now. The number is around 10,000 Palestinian prisoners, including 350 children. They are in a high risk to be face what Walid is faced. So we work in this field since more than 33 years. But what is happening the last 2 years after the 7th of October is unprecedented before, and it become a policy. And then unfortunately, and Israeli leaders are proud to talk about how much they are exposing the prisoners to. And the number of the Palestinian prisoners killed after the 7th of October until now, more than 60 Palestinian prisoners, in addition to hundreds of Palestinians from Gaza. They've been arrested without sharing any information about them, or to their families. Now I can say, after the work of the Palestinian human rights organization who are dealing with the prisoners, there is around 1,000 Palestinians are considered forcibly disappearance, because Israeli army used to targeted the shelters, the schools, where a huge number of Palestinian civilians, women, children, adults are being there. So they used to ask all those who are from the age of 14 to 60 years old, they took them in the trucks, and without sharing any information about their names, about where they are. So now we are asking for case by case, and more than around 1,000 cases received information that no information about them. So where they are, nobody knows. From our side, we consider them are forcibly disappearance, but Israel refused to share information. Usually in the past, they used to share all these information with the Red Cross. Since the 7th of October until now, the International Red Cross are unable to get in to visit the prisoners. They have no information about those who are in prison. They have no names. So families are just waiting to hear any piece of information in order to know about their beloved. But around 1,000 are now disappearance. So Walid was, we managed actually, as I said, to see him in the court through the video, but after that he lost his life without seeing his family, without seeing his lawyer, and without until now we didn't hear any prison guard or any officer in the prison hold accountable for the case of the killing, I call it killing of Walid. So why this policy is continuous, why we are very much worried about the prisoners inside. I don't want to talk much about the accountability, but maybe Wesam will talk about. But because of the Israeli prison authority are work according to the restrictions, according to the policy that designed in the high level in Israel, in the political level and in the military level. So soldiers and the prison guards live under full impunity. So they have a free hand policy to do what they would like to do. And that policy resulted by the death of Walid and more than 60 prisoners until now. Israel announced about their death. So no accountability. This means that immunity to the criminals, and that means they will continue their crimes against the civilians. We believe that this is the time for the international intervention to speak out about the Israeli policy and to hold the Israeli criminals accountable for their crimes in order to save the life of the Palestinian and to prosecute the criminals in the court. So I will stop here and maybe to leave time for the colleagues and also to questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Khaled, for this very, very clarifying explanation of yours. Not only it was very important for us to listen to your explanation, but it also makes us think, that, well, thank you for really being there. Like for now, it's the link from the family to the young boy who was killed in Israeli prison and in so many other cases. So your organization is establishing this link, which in other cases simply wouldn't exist. So yeah, so before we continue, really thank you very much for both your work and this explanation. So I'll pass the floor now to Wesam. As I said in my presentation earlier, Walid Ahmad is from he's the head of the Center for Applied International Law at Al-Haq, and will now speak about how this specific case is a microcosm of the impunity that sustains what is going on in the Israeli prison system and other instances also. So the floor is yours, Wesam.
Thank you, Arlene, and thank you to the Center for Palestine Studies for organizing this important discussion. We join everyone in mourning the death of Walid Ahmad, who's not only Palestinian, but also a Brazilian citizen. And the circumstances of his death, which have been very eloquently put forward by Khaled, show the dire conditions of starvation and medical neglect that he was suffering from while in detention. And I think it's also important to note that his family has not received his body for burial yet either. as I understand it. And this is another policy that Israel practices of withholding bodies, another example of these policies of collective punishment. And I think this is why I can't imagine what Walid's family is going through, but his death is not an isolated incident. And we have to keep in mind that this is emblematic of Israel's systematic and institutionalized use of torture, starvation, and collective punishment against the Palestinian people. And as has been documented in Al-Haq's work and others like DCI and Damir, the Israeli occupation forces and Israeli prison services have subjected thousands of Palestinian detainees, including children, to inhumane detention conditions, physical and psychological abuse, and in many cases with fatal outcomes, as in the case of Walid. And this individual case by starvation, which clearly contributed significantly to Walid's death, can't be seen in isolation from Israel's ongoing genocidal assault on Gaza. And it needs to be understood as part of Israel's broader strategy of domination, and it reflects an entrenched apartheid regime that relies on racialized violence and the dehumanization to suppress Palestinian existence. And in fact, just about an hour ago, the Palestinian NGO network just released an appeal declaring a famine in Gaza. And I'll share the link here if possible. So the starvation of one Palestinian, the starvation of many Palestinians, this is all interconnected, and it's important to see that. And Walid's experience is inseparable from the countless others that have been detained and tortured in custody and denied access to food and medical treatment, especially since October 7th. And as Khaled noted, Israel continues to enjoy this impunity from the international community's persistent failure to uphold the fundamental principles of international law. And despite the ample documentation and direct appeals to UN special procedures, including documentation around the deaths of Palestinian detainees in custody, there have been no tangible mechanisms activated, and it's been a deafening silence that inaction only further emboldens this kind of action, and it trickles down throughout Israeli society and all actors, especially within the Israeli prison services. And so I think this is just another point from which we need to step back and ask, where is the international community? What is it going to take to get action? And I think this particularly this situation puts an onus on Brazil as a country to step in and raise its voice, not only to address Walid's death, but the broader conditions of all Palestinian detainees, and support an independent investigation into Israel's systematic torture and starvation policies, and support the international legal mechanisms that need to be utilized. What did we create them for? What is the point of these international mechanisms if they are unable to hold those with power, especially in this asymmetrical power dynamics of the colonizer and the colonized? It renders these tools useless in our eyes as we continue to try to make use of them. They continue to disappoint us. But I think, again, we don't lose hope in humanity as a collective. We continue to push our messages with regard to the importance of the spirit of international law and the value that it has and it should be adhered to. But in order for that to really mean something, states have to take action. States have to give international law meaning, and so ability falls on all states. But again, specifically Brazil, where it can use this tragedy as an opportunity to raise its voice in the pursuit of accountability for Walid's death. And one specific example that I will conclude with is there's a new initiative, an alliance of states committed to supporting international investigations into Israel's conduct and enforcing legal accountability through concrete measures, which is the Hague Group that was initiated early this year. And I think this is one specific step that Brazil can take to join the collection of other states that have launched this Hague Group and give international law meaning and the pursuit of accountability meaning to send a message to Israel that the impunity that it enjoys cannot last forever, and it will not last forever. And I will stop there. And I shared the link with regard to the issue of famine in Gaza. I think it's important to see these things in an interconnected way, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that might come up as well.
Thank you very much, Wesam. It was really important for us to be able to put that perspective in, what the role of Brazil and how Brazil can help to bring about possibly some kind of accountability through giving international law meaning. And taking into consideration that this was one specific case of a Brazilian citizen, and it reflects what is happening daily to so many Palestinians who are in the Israeli under Israeli prisoner custody. So thank you very much. We'll continue. I'd like to call into the room the president of the Palestinian Federation, Walid Rabah. Thank you very much. Muito obrigada por se juntar a nós. I'll also take the opportunity to thank the monitors, Laura and Mariana, who are backstage, and they have put the link with some on the YouTube page, so they have already shared that link that you sent. Walid is going to speak in Portuguese, and I will summarize his speech at the end. Walid, muito obrigada por sua presença, é muito importante para nós ter esse ponto de vista que você irá trazer ao final dessa sessão. Já passamos por Khaled com uma fala específica sobre o caso do brasileiro morto, Wesam, da Al-Haq, e agora a Maíra Pinheiro vai fazer a apresentação dela, e a gente termina com as suas palavras, e eu já avisei a eles que eu irei fazer um breve resumo em inglês para eles da sua fala. Então, por favor, muito obrigada, agradeço a sua participação. E eu passo assim to Maíra Pinheiro. The floor is yours, Maíra. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arlene. Boa tarde a todas e a todos. Walid Ahmad presente. So, starting from where Wesam ended about how the member states of the international organizations should trigger legal action through their domestic courts, I'm gonna present at first how things should be and the legal basis that we could use in order to try to trigger some kind of legal action considering the circumstances of this case. And then I'll present some of the challenges that we have been facing in attempting this kind of legal action here in Brazil regarding crimes and international human rights violations perpetrated by Israelis. So to start, Walid, as a Brazilian citizen, had many of his constitutional rights violated by the Israeli state, his right to dignity, his right to safety. As a teenager, our constitution establishes that his interests have utmost priority. That's according to Article 226 of the Brazilian Constitution. This priority involves not only the right to be protected, but also the obligation of the state and of the entire society to act to protect these rights. So this priority could also be mentioned when we ask the Brazilian state for more energetic action regarding the murder of Walid Ahmad. And as a lawyer working with criminal law, I understand that Walid's death is a murder because there is clear intention to cause the result of death. And if there's not, there's not clear intention, and the perpetrators were also not caring about the extreme, obvious, and high risk of causing his death through their actions. So it's intentional murder, according to the parameters of Brazilian law. Besides that, Brazil is also a signatory to multiple international human rights treaties that oblige the Brazilian state to protect Walid Ahmad's rights. This includes like the Beijing rules that talk about specifically the rights of teenagers who are in correctional and prison facilities. According to the parameters of Brazilian law, Walid should have access to proper installations, to education, to proper food and nutrition, to access to his family constantly. He should have access to health care. And all these rights, when we talk about the concrete situation of Palestinian detainees, it's almost embarrassing to list them like that, but I think it's important for us to remember what these rights are and that they actually exist in paper, so that the extent of the violation becomes clear. Apart from that, we have last year on July 19th, the International Court of Justice ruled the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories as illegal, and this advisory opinion was later confirmed by a resolution of the General Assembly of the United Nations, which means that Israel has no jurisdiction in the occupied Palestinian territories. So no decision, court ruling that comes from the Israeli occupation should be considered valid from any perspective, because they have no right to be neither policing, nor prosecuting, nor arresting, nor keeping these people in jail, especially when it comes to teenagers. So Walid Ahmad was murdered. Does Brazil have the right to investigate this crime? And the answer is yes. According to Brazil's penal code, when you have a crime committed against a Brazilian abroad, this is one of the hypotheses of the extraterritorial jurisdiction. And our constitution also establishes that torture is a crime that is not subject to the statute of limitations. So the severity of the case imposes on the Brazilian state an even larger duty to investigate. And then we come to, we look away from how things should be, and we look into how things actually are. We've been attempting to trigger the Brazilian criminal justice system to investigate war crimes and crimes against humanity since the end of last year. I know that FEPAL also has presented some requests to the Brazilian Federal Police and Federal Prosecutor with the same type of goal. And what we've been seeing so far is that either some of these institutions are politically compromised, or they are afraid of Israel, or they argue that these investigations are impossible, because in order for them to be feasible, they would need the cooperation of Israel and Palestine, and without even asking Palestine, they argued that it's impossible to count on the cooperation of Palestine, which I see as institutional racism by Brazilian institutions. And since when do you need the perpetrator's cooperation in order to start an investigation? If you can end criminal law, if that's a conditio sine qua non for an investigation to take place. So who cares? Obviously, Israel is not going to contribute with any kind of information. They are a delinquent state that reached the insane dystopian point that it has reached right now because they face no consequence. Yesterday, when I was planning my presentation, after I finished my bullet points, I started playing with AI, asking some questions like, give me one case of an Israeli convicted of murder. Give me, and I kept asking AI for examples of unlawful killings that ended up in any kind of accountability in the history of Israel. And there just doesn't exist. How can it exist? How can it be possible that you have an entire colonial occupying nation with no murder convictions when people are dying every day as they are in Palestine?
No one heard that.
So we have no convictions, we have no record of any kind of justice and accountability, and we need the local jurisdictions to trigger this. At the same time, Brazilian institutions need a little push, and that's how I'm going to finish my first speech, because Walid is coming after me, and I think academia has a big role to play in this. Because we can push the state to open these investigations. I believe eventually we will succeed in that. But in order to do that, we have to do the whole work of the state instead of them. We have to present all the evidence with a lot of detail in a way that the state has no option but start an investigation. We have to corner state actors. Otherwise, they won't do anything. And the cooperation, and there are a lot of reports, very detailed reports. There are field investigators from multiple organizations, including DCI Palestine and Al-Haq and Adamir and Miftah, and so many organizations that we as academics and activists have relationship with in Palestine that can provide us with the evidence that will corner these state actors into acting in a way that not addressing the unsurmountable amount of evidence becomes more uncomfortable for these, I'm sorry to say, coward state actors than actually the fear they have of Israel, the fear they have of being harassed when they go to Israel for tourism, the fear they have of the Brazilian crazy far right, the fear they will have of not acting in the face of the huge amount of evidence we will present has to be greater. And the bridge that has to be made between the organizations that are in the territory in Palestine collecting information and the Brazilian state will be made by activists and academia. And that's how we're going to try to change this cycle of impunity. And that's how I end my first presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maida. That was very clarifying indeed. Thank you also for remembering the people who are watching us that after we finish the initial speeches by each one of our invited speakers, we can collect questions from people who are watching. So I'll pass the floor now to Walid Rabah. Walid, que é presidente da Federação Palestina, e é com você, Walid, por favor.
Primeiro de tudo, muito obrigado pela oportunidade, especialmente à Faculdade de Filosofia FFLCH, da USP, ao seu Centro de Estudos Palestinos, que, aliás, é uma iniciativa das mais importantes neste continente, no que diz respeito à Palestina, no campo intelectual e acadêmico, e numa universidade que é uma das mais importantes do mundo, a USP, Universidade de São Paulo, e a professora Arlene, que comanda essa iniciativa, bem como, claro, comanda esse centro de estudos propriamente, que realiza também esse encontro. a advogada Maíra, que tem se destacado muito em uma série de iniciativas no campo jurídico, que tem tido grande impacto aqui no Brasil, de persecução aos que tomam parte do extermínio na Palestina. E, é claro, não poderia deixar de cumprimentar os meus irmãos Khaled e Wesam, que estão aqui conosco. Ahlan wa sahlan bikum. De um modo bastante resumido, nós afirmamos recentemente, e talvez seja esse o ponto mais importante de afirmar agora aqui, né? Para além do genocídio que é continuado, para além da ocupação que é continuada, para além da limpeza étnica que é conhecida na Palestina, para além do mais, dos métodos que a ocupação colonial, com o nome fantasia Israel, promove, e o encarceramento massivo, ilegal, e as torturas nele também são conhecidas. Para além disto tudo, nós temos tentado afirmar duas coisas fundamentais, ou três. A primeira delas é que talvez o empreendimento colonial sionista esteja muito próximo do seu prazo de validade, por isso a máxima brutalidade na Palestina neste momento. Ou seja, é visível a busca de uma solução final, e Gaza nos demonstra muito bem isso. Nós podemos dizer, por exemplo, que temos a maior matança de crianças proporcionalmente de todos os tempos, e nós provamos isso. São agora 9.936 crianças exterminadas por milhão de habitantes em Gaza, contra 2.813 exterminadas por milhão de habitantes na Europa da Segunda Guerra Mundial. Isso dá 3,5 vezes mais. Podemos dizer também que esta é a maior matança de mulheres da história dos genocídios e das guerras. Além do mais, o aumento de 300% dos abortos involuntários neste período genocidário em Gaza, bem como pelo menos 1.000 mulheres, seguramente, embora não tenhamos um número precisado ainda, talvez seguramente mais do que 1.000 mulheres palestinas exterminadas grávidas. Portanto, esta é a primeira afirmação. Está em andamento o primeiro experimento social genocida da história humana, em que o colapsamento da capacidade reprodutiva de uma sociedade é buscado neste padrão e nesta velocidade. Porque matar ventres, as mulheres em quantidades industriais, e matar as crianças que saíram desses ventres faz pouco, significa impedir que a sociedade palestina siga naturalmente se reproduzindo. O segundo elemento que nós estamos buscando abordar é que, em sendo o sionismo um projeto colonial que se distingue dos demais na busca da eliminação integral da população originária, aqui faço um pequeno parênteses. Não quer dizer que os outros projetos coloniais, as outras empreitadas coloniais não tenham sido também genocidárias e não tenham sido de apartheid. Entretanto, até onde nós conhecemos, a sionista é a única que, a priori, determina que a população originária deve ser integralmente exterminada, integralmente esvaziada da geografia que ela ocupa, a Palestina. Se é assim, quer dizer que desde que o sionismo se realiza escolhendo a Palestina como destino, em 1897, na Basileia, Suíça, todos os seus atos, professora Arlene, necessariamente perseguem este objetivo. Portanto, nenhum ato do regime chamado Israel deixa de ter como objetivo a alcançar a limpeza étnica. Portanto, o encarceramento em massa tem este objetivo. A violência sexual tem este objetivo para afugentar a população que tem medo de passar a estar sob a política israelense de Estado agora, massivamente aplicante da violência sexual contra homens e mulheres. O relatório da ONU, apresentado há cerca de 4 semanas, que informa da violência sexual, informa dos atos libidinosos ou do atentado violento ao pudor de soldados israelenses nos postos de controle militar na Cisjordânia, para meninas de 7 a 10 anos, para as adolescentes, para as jovens e para as mulheres, mesmo que grávidas, mostram as suas genitálias. E o que algumas famílias disseram? Para fugir disso, estamos casando cada vez mais cedo as nossas mulheres para que elas vão embora daqui. Portanto, mesmo exibir as genitálias não é um ato meramente translocado ou insano. Obedece uma política geral da ocupação para afugentar essas populações. E, finalmente, o aprisionamento em massa e o aprisionamento de jovens, o aprisionamento de crianças e a violência sexual deles na prisão. Tal qual temos visto agora, nós já tínhamos notícia, já era sabido que a violência sexual era praticada nas masmorras israelenses. Entretanto, o aprisionamento massivo de mais de 18 mil pessoas desde 7 de outubro de 2023 e o sabido por todos que a violência sexual foi praticada, inclusive com a introdução de instrumentos perfurantes para até a morte daqueles que morreram sob esta tortura, significa dizer que cada pessoa na Palestina que estiver aprisionada ou com medo de ser aprisionada, sequestrada para suas masmorras, temerá a violência sexual. Mulheres e homens. Essas pessoas não quererão, especialmente jovens, ficar na Palestina. Temerão ser presos e serem estuprados, urrados, violentados. Neste elemento, nós afirmamos, eu acho que isso é importante destacar. Está havendo, com o aprisionamento de brasileiros palestinos e de outros descendentes de palestinos de outras diásporas que estão na Palestina, e aqueles que querem ir à Palestina ainda, a seguinte mensagem: não venham. Seus filhos e netos serão presos, torturados, violados sexualmente e morrerão. Hoje foi libertado Ahmad Manassra, foi preso com 13 anos. Está preso Salah ad-Din, que é primo de Walid Khaled, que está com suspeita de estar com as mesmas violências, desnutrição, tortura, sede e doença sem tratamento. Sem considerar o Walid Khaled, que já se foi, temos a informação de que são 11 os brasileiros palestinos. O que isso significa, professora Arlene, Maíra, Khaled e Wesam? Que o sionismo, o regime israelense, está exportando o genocídio ou a perspectiva do genocídio alcançar as diásporas. A pergunta é: quem que tem filhos como eu, uma filha de 21 e um filho de 18, que querem ir à Palestina para passar uma temporada, não temerá que seus filhos, ao, por exemplo, se manifestarem politicamente lá, não sejam sequestrados e submetidos à morte? Aqueles que têm seus filhos lá, passando uma temporada para aprender a língua árabe, para conhecer seus familiares, a cultura, quererá ficar lá e não retornará, de medo. E, por fim, qual a família, como membros da minha família que nasceram no Brasil, que foram para a Palestina após Oslo, se fixaram, casaram lá e têm vários filhos lá, farão isso, portanto, continuarão reproduzindo para habitar a Palestina, saindo da diáspora para fazer uma Palestina? Parecem perguntas, professora Arlene, ingênuas, mas é possível afirmar categoricamente que o regime sionista está exportando o genocídio, a perspectiva do genocídio, e incutindo nas diásporas o temor de continuar habitando a Palestina ou frequentando a Palestina. Isso tudo tem um objetivo: a limpeza étnica, o extermínio, o genocídio, a solução final para a Palestina. Muito obrigado.
Walid, muito obrigada por trazer essa visão que, bom, sem esse depoimento seria difícil o brasileiro entender essa relação entre o crime cometido contra um palestino brasileiro lá na prisão, um maltrato, a intenção e o impacto que esse maltrato e essa morte, como esposa Khaled, de certa forma intencional, porque sabe-se que o resultado é esse, ao conferir esses maus tratos, a intenção e o impacto que isso tem sobre a diáspora, sobre o palestino que está no Brasil. So I will, vou condensar sua fala, os pontos principais, Walid, para os dois convidados. Khaled and Wesam, just the main points and very interesting points that Walid told us about. He mentioned after a general exposition about what's happening today and his views on the terrible situation of today, he went into the specific aspect of the impact that this case has on the Palestinian community in Brazil. The message is intentional in his view. The Israeli government with this is intentionally telling the Palestinian diaspora in Brazil that they should not try to visit Palestine, that they should not try to go there to learn Arabic, meet family members, get married or whatsoever, because this is what they will face if they try to go back. So it's a way of keeping Palestinians from the diaspora away. So it's an intentional policy to keep Palestinians from the diaspora away from Palestine. Okay, so that was his very, I would say, valuable view, which he brought in just now. I would like to ask Laura and Mariana, who are backstage, if they have any questions, or also Maíra, if you have questions that you would like to put to any of our guests. Let me see here.
So actually, I really wanted to know from Khaled if we could think of a strategy to get the files from Walid's case, to present them here to the federal police, to the federal prosecutor's office, and also in Congress. And it would be very important to have also like the backup of the academic institutions and the social movements. But I think these files, they exist. The evidence of this murder already exists. It will have to be translated, which involves one type of effort. It will have to be organized in a legal complaint, which involves another type of effort. It will have to involve research into other reports about the human rights violations in the Israeli prison system, which also involves efforts that need to be collected. But I think we could turn this into something and put some more pressure into the Brazilian institutions, because we have some good statements from Lula every now and then that make us feel, sometimes I feel like we get way happier than we should with those statements that have no concrete result in stopping the genocide or in changing the dystopian violation of human rights that is taking place. And when we have a Brazilian victim, unfortunately, this is a good case, because the excuses that the Brazilian institutions can come up with to not investigate, to not look into it, are less than when it comes to the Palestinian victims. And I would like to know from Khaled if he had any contact with, if DCI was in contact with the Brazilian embassy, because in theory, the Brazilian embassy should have free access to Walid. We know they didn't, because if he didn't have access even to a lawyer or his family, obviously the embassy wasn't going there to visit him regularly according to the international treaties. But do you have any record of the Brazilian embassy going there to check on him or cooperating in any way with the investigation of his rights violations? Your microphone is off.
Yes, thank you very much for raising this very important point. So, yes, Israel, as we mentioned, myself and Wesam, Israel is unwilling to do any kind of prosecution unwilling to hold any Israeli criminal accountable, soldier, settler, officer, regardless the rank that he is in, but they never show any interest to hold them accountable. Even the Israeli human rights organization reached a conclusion that no way to file any complaint against those who are torturing or killing the Palestinians, because all the complaints that they file against what called settler violence or soldiers, all these cases ended without holding the criminals accountable. So also as a Palestinian, we decided not to ask the Israeli system to prosecute any criminal, because with tens of years, they left the criminals free and never hold them accountable. So for the case of Walid, I think that will be a strong case. Unfortunately, he passed away, but killed, I can say. So it's important for Brazil colleagues from both sides, from the local level, the human rights actors, and also as a government, to take it as a case, because Israel is unwilling to do the prosecution. And the Fourth Geneva Convention is so clear that if there is international crimes committed or grave violation to the Fourth Geneva Convention without holding the criminals accountable, this is the time for the universal jurisdiction to intervene and to prosecute the criminals. And also, for as Mayara mentioned, according to the penal code in Brazil, they can use their jurisdiction to hold the criminals accountable, and it happens in different states, such cases. So I think it's a strong case. Until now, okay, I visited the family, but such circumstances and the atmosphere that their child was arrested while he was enjoying good health, and after a few months they received a phone call that he is passed away. So there is no medical report from the prison shows the situation that he was living. There is no body that they hand over to the family. Just they receive the message, and according to the message, they consider their son is passed away, and they live under shock. So this is the time, I think, to use this case as a test case in the Brazilian jurisdiction to start for Walid, and maybe can be used for others. But I will, by the beginning of the next week, I will contact the Brazilian diplomat mission in Palestine, in Ramallah, to see if they take any action, and maybe I will also be with the family to try to do kind of connection in order to start as an initiative, because as I mentioned in my presentation, I'm very much worried about the life of the thousands of Palestinian prisoners inside that they were neglected and they've been living in the same circumstances that Walid passed away with. Thank you.
Khaled, it's Walid here. He mentioned, Khaled and Wesam, Walid mentioned that there are 10 more Brazilian youth prisoners. Don't know exactly their ages, but 10 more Brazilian prisoners. One was liberated today. And we know, and those who are watching us know, how difficult it is to do anything under the current situation. There's a genocide going on. There's constant threat against the whole of the West Bank. There's announcement of annexation of the West Bank. The ethnic cleansing has begun of the West Bank, and your organizations are under threat. Al-Haq is under threat constantly. Both of your organizations are under threat. However, taking specifically the cases of these Brazilians for a moment, these who are still alive, do you believe that contacting the Brazilian embassy and beginning some kind of movement, possibly in coordination here with organizations, could this help save the lives of these 10 other Brazilian prisoners? Specifically this case, we are also worried about the thousands of Palestinians, but we have to work with specific cases here. Do you think that could help? What's your evaluation, both Khaled and Wesam?
I mean, I'll pick up on what Mayra said, is that these are additional variables that strengthen the position of Brazil to take action and raise their voices, because there's a greater interest, so to say, and it isn't going to change everything. And this is one of the questions we're always asking: how can we stop this? Well, unfortunately, it's a systemic issue that isn't going to change overnight. You have various powers at play, various interests, but it's easy to throw your hands up and say it's too much for me to do as an individual, or one country to do as Brazil. But it is important that each one of us, where we can, take the action that we can. We can't engage everything at once in all places, but these are small examples that contribute to shifting political will, contributing in a movement towards a future that we aspire to. And we have to have faith that it is the collection of action, of individual actions coming together over time within this system of humanity that we live in, that there will be a tipping point. We don't know when that tipping point will be, but we can't give up hope on its existence and continue each one to contribute towards it.
Thank you. Khaled, did you want to?
Yeah, totally agree with Wesam. And from our experience, all what is happening now is because of because no accountability. So if we manage to start in Brazil and maybe in other places, and of course there is many initiatives now come up after the genocide in Gaza, I think that's will let every Israeli soldier, every Israeli settler will think before committing any crime, because he will feel that no more impunity. They will be held accountable if he get out, and I'm sure that will be reflected back to his behavior, his actions in the ground. So it will be a good start for ending the impunity.
Thank you. Walid, eu tinha perguntado para ele sobre, bom, mesmo nessas terríveis condições em que a pressão e a repressão recai, inclusive, sobre as organizações deles, se o contato que Khaled pretende fazer com a Embaixada do Brasil semana que vem, e em coordenação com movimentos e organizações aqui, em contato com o governo aqui, se isso poderá ajudar a salvar a vida desses outros 10 prisioneiros brasileiros que você mencionou que estão lá. E é claro que estamos preocupados com a vida de todos os milhares de palestinos, mas a gente tem que lidar com casos específicos aqui, e a gente tem 10 brasileiros, né? E tanto o Wesam como o Khaled responderam que sempre as ações, mesmo em situações tão difíceis, elas se somam. Então é importante que essa movimentação aconteça. Ninguém tem como saber quando que essa guinada, que aliás você anunciou no começo da sua fala, né, na visão de que a empreitada e empreendimento colonial sionista, ele está próximo de um fim, por isso toda a violência que ele hoje exprime, ou seja, quando que esse momento de guinada irá ocorrer, mas certamente não se pode deixar de agir, deixar de tentar salvar essas vidas, deixar de tentar trazer accountability, que é uma palavra difícil de traduzir, ou seja, consequência, né, pelos crimes, e claramente a gente está falando de um jovem e de outros jovens que estão sofrendo tortura, maus tratos e fome utilizado como arma contra eles, inclusive porque, lembrando aqui na fala inicial do Ualid, ele mencionou como que Ben-Gvir hoje anuncia com muito orgulho que as prisões estão matando os palestinos de fome. Né? Isso é motivo de orgulho hoje para uma pessoa como Ben-Gvir. Eu vou, então, abrir para uma última colocação de cada um de nós e encerrar essa gravação, que vai ficar disponível, né, como um documento no YouTube do CEPAL, um documento para ser usado, distribuído. Então, eu gostaria de começar com o Ualid. So now I'm going to give each of you a final words for us to finish this session. I was explaining to Ualid what both of you had said, and now I'm going to give the floor to Ualid to say his final words, remembering that this session will be online on our YouTube channel and sent out to the channels that are possibly fit for that need the information that you have brought here today. Então, Ualid, por favor, suas palavras finais. Você gostaria de fazer um comentário?
Coincidência ou não, é muita coincidência, né? Eu acabei de receber uma minuta de um documento que vai ser distribuído para convocar toda a sociedade brasileira a pedir a imediata libertação dos brasileiros palestinos encarcerados nas masmorras israelenses, extensível, evidentemente, a todos aqueles palestinos, diaspóricos ou não, que estejam nessas masmorras. Essa campanha visa sensibilizar a opinião pública brasileira, e nós temos uma campanha que já aconteceu, que foi pela libertação da Lamia Maruf, e que na época foi coordenada exatamente sob este mesmo manto de organizações da sociedade civil e de organizações da palestinidade diaspórica neste país. Então, essa iniciativa, acabei de receber o documento, eu tenho que analisar, porque ele tem algumas correções a serem feitas, e nós convocaremos a sociedade brasileira, e, na verdade, será a sociedade brasileira que comandará isso. Essa não é uma tarefa da FEPAL apenas, ou absolutamente não. Nós estamos, na verdade, sob um grande guarda-chuva, que vai ser o da sociedade brasileira organizada neste sentido. É preciso destacar que campanhas como essa, elas ajudam a opinião pública mais pedestre no Brasil a compreender, que eu acho que é o que não está entendendo, o que é o genocídio, o que é o sionismo, o que é apreender, sequestrar uma criança de 12, 13 anos e colocá-la numa masmorra, torturá-la, fazê-la passar fome, fazê-la ficar doente até morrer. Isso as pessoas comuns brasileiras não entendiam, a opinião pública brasileira. Então, é nossa tarefa fazer com que, destas barbaridades, nós sejamos capazes de comunicar à sociedade brasileira do que está acontecendo na Palestina. Então, essa iniciativa a gente vai adotar e, seguramente, nós precisaremos, nesta campanha, dos testemunhos vivos também dos nossos irmãos palestinos lá, de seus familiares, testemunhando e nós difundindo estes testemunhos aqui. Não apenas de brasileiros palestinos, porque não é só isso em questão. Nós não somos exclusivistas. Então, isso já está em andamento e eu espero que a gente consiga dar conta disso.
Muito obrigada, Ualid. So Ualid was mentioning that coincidentally or not, a campaign is being finalized in its features and will be launched to call Brazilian society to demand the release of Palestinian prisoners who are political prisoners, clearly. The 10 Brazilian prisoners, but this is also extensive to all Palestinian prisoners kept under situations and conditions of absolute violation of human rights, of basic human rights in Israeli prisons. So all the information brought here and so on will be very important in that for that campaign. So please, we'll go back from where, from the back to the beginning. So Maíra, please, your final words. You're muted.
Opa. So I hope this valuable initiative by the Center of Palestinian Studies serves as the beginning of a broader action in the search for accountability for the perpetrators of the murder of Walid Ahmad. I believe that one important role that the Center of Palestinian Studies could play is to publish in academic works about the structural human rights violations, the violations against the rights of children and teenagers in Palestine, and published the results of these reports, and the case study of Walid Ahmad in Portuguese. There's a lot of open source material about this, the prison conditions and how it's completely criminal what the Palestinian prisoners are undergoing. This could lead to some very interesting interdisciplinary work among students and scholars and activists from various areas of knowledge at USP. And we need to also demand that the Brazilian state act. And I think it's very, very valuable that DCI Palestine is going to reach out to the embassy. I think they're going to give you a very nice response about how worried they are and how much they care about these people. And that's as far as it will go. The state actors will not go after producing evidence, because that's the current standard. The investigations that lead to actual consequences for perpetrators will only take place now through the action of the organized civil society, cornering state actors, leaving them no choice but opening legal cases, because this is the last. So when this aspect of the Zionist entity is broken, the structural impunity, it will be a crack that will spread hugely. So ensuring impunity is a very strong basic pillar of this colonial system. So it will have to come from us. The state actors will only reach a certain point, and that's. I have 15 years of Workers' Party. I fought a lot to elect Lula. I love Lula. I'm as Lulist as you can imagine. But I don't expect anything from this government, unfortunately. We celebrate when they state the obvious as if it was a big achievement of the movement to get Lula to say it's a genocide. We know it's a genocide. That doesn't make any difference. We celebrate when the Ministry of Foreign Relations puts out statements condemning the obvious, condemning a school massacre or a murder of a teenager through starvation. That's obvious, and that doesn't change anything. We need actual consequences. We need to crack this structural impunity. That's it. Agora você que está sem microfone, Arlene.
Thank you very much, Maida. So, Wesam, would you like to say your final words?
Thank you again for the opportunity, and it's obviously hard to follow Maida's impassioned statement, because I think she touched on all the important points. So long as Israel continues to enjoy impunity within the system, that system is undermined, and the integrity of that system continues to weaken, and we can't allow this exception within the system to continue. Saying that is not enough. There needs to be tangible actions. You need to have tangible legal action, tangible diplomatic action, tangible economic action, because words alone, to some extent, are part of the hamster wheel that keeps the status quo. Because you're allowed to say things that, so long as they don't actually have an impact, it's okay. And I think the political rhetoric, we've grown very weary of it, and we want to see tangible action. And I think, unfortunately, this is an opportunity for Brazil to step up and take more tangible action. And they're not going to do it on their own. Civil society, the general public have a role to play, because the government is supposed to be a reflection of the will of its people. That's what political will is. And how do we connect the will of the people to the actions of the state? That's the challenge that we all have to take up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wesam. Thank you very much for taking your time to come to this session and explain your point of view and all the experience you have in working with human rights violations and this specific issue in Palestine. Khaled, thank you. Could you give your final words?
Thank you very much. Really, I add my voice to my colleagues that I think every action can contribute to create the change. While we are here in this webinar, I received the message that one of the prisoners from Gaza who've been arrested since months passed away. And this is how the Israeli deal with the life of the Palestinians, like just sending a message without care, without any information, and the family must take it and live with it that the son passed away, and no medical treatment report, why he was, how he was died, why there is no handing over the body. They kept the body. Now there is hundreds of Palestinian bodies are kept in Israel. Prisoners are dying inside the prison and they kept the body, like the case of Ualid. So I think we are in a very critical time. So we are competing with the time as much as we are for start in any action that will maybe make a change and maybe create the change that we are looking for, to hold the criminals accountable in order to save the life of our prisoners. Tens of thousands, more than 10,000 Palestinian prisoners are in, women, children, adults, all elder people. So I think we are competing with the time.
Well, thank you very much to all of you who, as I said, took your time to come here to explain all you know about this case and about the case of general case of conditions in Israeli prisons and the international law involved in these violations. Ualid, agradeço muito a você também, a sua participação, de tomar seu tempo tão corrido para estar aqui e trazer esses esclarecimentos, especificamente o olhar da diáspora palestino-brasileira, né, que a gente não teria como entender, ter noção se não fosse a sua presença. And I'd like to say that of course, that my final words here would be that I hope that somehow, yes, we can help these abducted Palestinians that we call prisoners have first a decent treatment, accountability for those authorities who are prison authorities, state authorities violating their human rights and leading to their deaths. And we hope, of course, that we can help this tipping point to come around sooner than later. So thank you very much to all of you. And thank you especially to Maid also for helping organize this, and to the team of the Center for Palestine Studies who are backstage making this work also. Thank you very much to all of you.